Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you guys about my September reads and what I hope to be reading in October. So this month I actually read 5.5 books, so I'll explain that a little bit more once I get into that book. I'm actually on Goodreads right now, which is an app where you can go on to rate books that you've read and books that you want to read. If you like to read, I would highly recommend getting the Goodreads app. This is not sponsored, I just really like the app and I think anyone who is a reader could benefit. I'm going to be using my Goodreads app to just remind myself of what I've read and what I thought about them and the ratings that I gave them. So the first book that I actually read in the month of September, I did happen to read it on my Kindle, and that book was Ariadne. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it is by Jennifer Saint, and it's a Greek mythology book. So the story of Ariadne basically focuses on her and her story being the princess of Crete and the sister of the Minotaur. If you aren't familiar with the story, it's basically the Minotaur that's trapped in the maze, and people get fed to him each year because he's a monster. The hero Theseus from Athens comes and basically slays the Minotaur. I was expecting just a simple retelling of the Princess of Crete and the Minotaur, the story that I learned about in high school, and when I read it I got so much more. It just is a lot about female empowerment and the story and bond of the Princess of Crete, Ariadne, and her younger sister. The ending, although sad, was just like, it was very beautiful and it wrapped up the story beautifully. Greek mythology, if you're familiar with it or if you've read a lot of the retellings of Greek mythology, it's not ever a happy ending, especially for the women in Greek mythology. It's honestly really sad and really heartbreaking what a lot of the women went through with a lot of the Greek mythology stories. A lot of the women in Greek mythology go through a lot of sacrifices and hardships at the hands of men or the gods. So I did rate that book 4 stars. It's a great Greek mythology retelling if Greek mythology is what you're interested in and what you like to read about. I definitely want to read more of her books, so if you have any suggestions, please let me know. I love Greek mythology and I love the retellings. I actually have the Song of Achilles and I have yet to read it because I've heard how heartbreaking it is, but it's definitely on my radar to read soon. The next book that I read was Magnolia Parks. I do have the physical copy right here. Look at how beautiful this cover is. Like, all of these covers are so beautiful. Not saying that I don't like the new covers, but I think the old covers are just as beautiful, and I really love them because when you look, you just keep discovering more and more things that relate to the inside of this book. So I did try to read this book physically, but I couldn't do it because it's just so, it's big. This is a big book, and like, I mean like long wise, like it's big. Do you see the difference? This is a big book. But I do understand it was because she was an independent author at the time. Yeah, so I did have to stop reading the physical copy and I actually bought it on my Kindle and started reading it on my Kindle. This book, oh my goodness. This book was such a roller coaster of emotions. This book focuses on the main character, Magnolia Parks, and the love interest of BJ Valentine. The main question that gets asked in the book is, how many loves do you get in a lifetime? The relationship is toxic, it's crazy, it's a whirlwind. They both try to hurt each other to try and get each other's attention, but You can tell that there's so much love for each other. They fell in love when they were young and they grew up together. They are really all each other have known as lovers. So they go through this crazy breakup and they both do things that hurt each other to get back at each other, to try and find their way back to each other. And basically this book is learning about their journey, going through with them, because you get Magnolia and BJ's perspectives. You get both of their perspectives. And the things that they say internally about each other, Miss Jessa Hastings just wrote this book so beautifully, and you almost want their love, but then you see all the toxic things that they do to each other to hurt each other, and you're like, do I really want them to be together? But you're rooting for them the whole time. Not in any way is BJ and Magnolia's relationship okay at all. It's extremely toxic, but the book itself is beautiful and it's beautifully written, and I'm still rooting for these characters. I am still rooting for them to be together. You just want them to be. You just want them to be. So I gave that book 4 stars. Like I said, it was beautifully written. I actually have Daisy Hates, which focuses on another character in the Magnolia Park series. You can, I guess, read them separately, like the Magnolia Parks and the Daisy Hates separately. I do have yet to read this. I will probably also be reading this on my Kindle because, like I said, it's quite large. And I don't know how comfortable I would be reading this because it is such a big book. So I am a little scared to get into that book. I know it's going to be a lot of hurting, it's going to be a lot of pain, but when I'm ready for it, I will get into it. So I finally understand what all of the hype about is with Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I did tab this book, and I actually ran out of my orange tabs. The orange tabs are moments with Violet and the love interest, and then the gray tabs are kind of just moments with the dragons and just moments that are important to the plot or crazy points in the book that I really enjoyed. So this book, if you have not heard about it yet, which I would be surprised if you haven't, is basically following Violet in her journey through the war college that she is currently attending. Her mom is actually the general of the college, and her older sister and older brother both were dragon riders. There's 4 different quadrants, and the riders is one of them, and the scribes is another one. And Violet basically trained all of her life to be a scribe, which is more the studyings of the writings of the college and the history of Navir. So she basically had studied all her life to be doing that. But her mother, the general, had different plans for her, and she was forced to be in the writer's quadrant, which not many people survive because it's like the military, basically, if I were to compare it to anything in our world that isn't fantasy, that's real. So a lot of people don't survive, and you basically just follow her through her journey of that. There's dragons, there's magic, there's a slow burn, enemies to lovers romance, there's found family. I gave this book 5 stars. I ate this book up, and I'm so excited for November 7th to receive the next book. If I remember correctly, I think Rebecca Yarros is planning to have this as a 5-book series. I would most definitely suggest getting into this book now if you are interested in reading it before the series becomes super huge, because with big series it can be very intimidating. This is great for first-time fantasy readers. Being one myself, I haven't read a lot of fantasy, so this was a great first introduction to them because there's not a ton of fantasy, but it is a fantasy book, if that makes sense. So this is a great first book to get into if you are looking to start getting into fantasy, and if you like enemies to lovers. So I needed a bit of a palate cleanser after that huge fantasy book that I read, so I decided to read The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Please do not come for me. I read The Inmate by Frida McFadden and I really enjoyed that book, and I actually gave that one 4 stars. So I did actually give this book 3 stars. I think because this was just so hyped up in my mind, I expected it to be just like this crazy thriller mystery that I would not be able to figure out. But I did figure out the plot twist pretty early on. There are a few plot twists, but the one big one, I did figure it out. Basically, this is about our main character, Millie, and she has just gotten out of prison. And she's looking for a job, and she gets hired as a nanny by this family, this perfect white picket fence family. And she gets put in this like dark attic, basically, that has a lock on the outside. Basically are going through the book trying to figure out why there's a lock on the outside, why these people are so mysterious, why the wife is like very bipolar. And you go through the book in Millie's point of view. But the reason I gave this a 3.5 isn't because it wasn't like a page turner. It definitely was a page turner. I couldn't put it down. I read it in two nights, basically. It was very fast paced, and I think it's great as a palate cleanser, which is exactly what I needed, was a palate cleanser. So I got exactly what I needed out of this book. Not a bad rating at all. It's a good book, but it's not the best thriller I've ever read. I do want to read more of her books, so if you have any suggestions, if you've read any of her other books, please let me know in the comments which one you really liked, because I would love to read some more of her books because I hear a lot of great things about her. Like I said, this book was not bad. It was not a bad book. I did enjoy reading it. I had fun while reading it, but like I said, it wasn't the best thriller I've ever read. So, yes. The next book that I ended up reading in September was Silver in the Bone by Alexandra Bracken. And I did tab this one as well because I read her other book, Lore, and I gave that book 5 stars, which that is also involving like Greek gods, Greek mythology. So if you're interested in that, I would recommend picking up Lore. So I knew that I would probably enjoy this book. I have not heard many people talk about Alexandria Bracken, and I think she just deserves a little bit more attention. She did do the Darkest Minds book. I do own the Darkest Minds trilogy and also the little novellas that come with them. So basically, Silver in the Bone follows our main character Tamsin Lark, who was kind of pushed into the world of Hollowers, which include cunning folk, who are mortal beings who were born with magical powers. And then you also have sorceresses who have magic. She was basically thrown into the Hollowers by her adoptive father, who kind of just picked her up and found her and took him into his care, as well as with her brother, her adoptive brother, Cable. And he is also a cunning folk. So he was a mortal that was born with magic. Tamsin, on the other hand, she is just a mortal. She doesn't have any magic. So she was just kind of thrown into everything. She doesn't have the same magic that most of the people in the Hollowers have. So she basically goes on a journey with one of her rivals to find the ring of disciple to break her brother's curse. So you're following Tamsin through this journey where she has to be involved with dark magic as someone who has no magic and no sight of magic, because they do have something called one sight as a cunning folk. If you're born with magic, you also have one sight, which allows you to see other magic. Tamsin unfortunately does not have that since she was not born with one vision. And you basically follow her and her rival as they help each other out because they both are trying to find the same thing. They're both on a journey to find this ring of disciple. This book was just a great adventure, great fantasy book. It also involves King Arthur and the 9 Knights. So if that's something that you're interested in, this is also a great book to read. I gave this 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The Rivals to Lovers was absolutely had me kicking my feet and giggling and screaming whenever they shared a moment together. This was also a slow burn romance, so if that's something that you enjoy, you have Rivals to Lovers, slow burn. And if you're also new to the fantasy world, I think this would be great for you to read. This book is, I believe, a series. I believe she's making it a series. I need another book immediately. Alexandria Bracken, if you happen to be watching this, I need another book right now. I love this so much that I actually got the Fairy Loot edition of the book. So yeah, I really love this book. It was great. So the last book that I read in September, which is kind of like the half book because I started this in September and I actually finished it October 1st, but we're just gonna include it in this video, was The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I have heard great things about this book and Riley Sager in general, how he's a great thriller author. So if you have not heard about this book yet or not read it, you're basically following Casey Fletcher, who has recently been widowed and was moved to her childhood lake house in Lake Green. I believe there's 5 houses in total that surround the lake, including her lake house. And a famous couple moves in the house across the lake from her home. She actually ends up saving the wife from drowning. After that, Casey just kind of develops this obsession with stalking the woman and her husband. And as she observes, she sees some suspicious things going on. You basically follow her as she kind of spirals down this rabbit hole of what she thinks is going on with the couple that lives across the lake from her. I did give this book 3.5 stars. Once again, I just think that this book and the author in general was extremely hyped up, and I just had these expectations of what I was expecting, like some crazy plot twist, something that I never would have expected to just leave me like dumbfounded and staring at the wall. Unfortunately, this is not what happened. While I didn't guess the super big plot twist, I guessed everything else that happened, like the other little plot twists, because there are a couple in every thriller. I think there's a couple plot twists and then you kind of get the big plot twist. But I did guess most of them except for the pretty big one. This book, unlike Frida McFadden's book, it was very difficult for me not to get bored in the beginning. And while I understand that most of the information kind of had to be in there to set up for what you read later on in the book, I just found myself like not caring at all about, you know, Casey's backstory, because Casey, as you find out, she's an actress. It actually says that on the back of the description here, so no spoilers or anything, but she is widowed and she is an actress. So you just get a lot of backstory about that, and she just kind of puts it into everything that she does, that she was an actress. It was very, very hard for me to get into the story until the big plot twist kind of happened, which I think was about 70% in the book. After that, I read it pretty quickly, and at that point it did catch my eye and I did read it very fast. So if you're looking for another pretty fast-paced, just good thriller, this one's pretty good. If you have read any of the other Riley Sager books and you enjoyed them, please recommend them to me, because I would love to read Final Girls. I've heard that that's a pretty good book by him. If you've read it and enjoyed it, please let me know, because I would love to read it. But I'm a little scared now after reading this, because although it was a good book, it didn't quite live up to my expectations. Those were all of the books that I read in September. Now I'm gonna go ahead and show you what my October TBR is, or my hopeful October TBR, what I'm hoping to get to, what I'm planning to get to. So this was one of the books that I wanted to read in October. It is currently October 6th, so I did already read this book, and if I happen to do my October wrap-up, you will see what my opinion is on this. This is 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. She did the super popular Good Girls Guide to Murder trilogy. If you haven't read that, I would highly recommend. It's a great YA thriller mystery. But if you're looking for a standalone, this is exactly what this is. You basically are following Red Kennedy, our main character. It does take place in 8 hours, so it's very fast-paced. The beginning was a little slow, but it picks up very quickly because you get thrown into what happens very quickly. Basically, her and 6 friends are in an RV, and they're planning to go on this little spring vacation from high school. And you have Red, our main character, you have her best friend Maddie, and you have her older brother's girlfriend, you have Maddie's guy friend named Arthur, and then you have another guy friend named Simon. So you have all these characters in one RV. During their journey, they almost get to where they're going, and the RV breaks down in the middle of nowhere. They have no idea where they are, they don't know what road they're on, and the RV breaks down and they get stuck, and someone starts to basically snipe at them while they are in the RV. And they claim that one of them in the RV has a secret that they need to know about. So you're going through this whole book in a span of 8 hours, and these 6 people are trying to figure out who has this secret, why does this person want to know, what is the secret. So if you like Holly Jackson, you like thrillers, I would highly recommend this book. The next book that I would like to and am currently reading in October is Curse of the Wolf King. And if you watch Miss Sarah Caroli, I would like to thank her for putting me on to this book. This is by Tisanya Odette. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, but also can we just look at this cover? It's so cute. Basically, this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but with fae. This is also a great book if you're looking to get into fantasy and you aren't super familiar with it. There isn't a ton of politics in this at all. Basically, you're following Gemma Belfleur, and she has an encounter with a wolf fae, and he's under a curse. And she is going to try and help him get rid of his curse, because she makes a bargain with him that also benefits her as well. But she starts to develop feelings for the wolf, and things get complicated. And it's great. If you like Beauty and the Beast, if you like that story, I would 100% recommend this book. I'm so thankful to Miss Sarah Caroli for introducing me to this series. So if you've read any other of the books in this series, they're all just retellings of different princesses. If you've read any of them, please let me know. If you enjoyed them, please let me know. I am super excited to finish this. I believe I have about 100 pages left, so I'm planning on finishing this today. This next book I actually got from Miss Destiny Sidwell. If you don't watch her, you should go watch her videos, as well as Miss Sarah Caroli. And I actually got it from one of her recommendation videos. I had bought this book probably in the very beginning of my reading journey, probably about a year ago, and I still have yet to read it. So when she put this on her recommendation video and said that she enjoyed it, I was like, I would love to read this. It's the perfect time. It's October. I actually don't know much about this book, but I believe it's a series of murders and the main character tries to solve it. So yeah, this is another book that I'm planning on reading in October. Another book that I have on my agenda for October is Hidden Pictures, and Stephen King actually has a little expert at the top saying that he loved it. So if he loved it, I think it's a pretty good thriller. And this is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. I'm so sorry if I butchered that. This is about Mallory Quinn, who is out of rehab, and she takes up a babysitter nannying job for a Ted and Caroline Maxwell, and she looks after their 5-year-old son Teddy. And Teddy basically does these artworks that get progressively more and more crazy. So he basically begins drawing pictures that are way beyond a 5-year-old's comprehension or what they're able to do, like this. So it just seemed very interesting to me, especially the aspect of the pictures and how they progressively get more skilled. And basically, she kind of has to figure out what's going on with that. So those are the books that are on my October TBR. Who knows if I'll get to them? Who knows if I'll read more? So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching my video today. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Comment down below what books you're planning on reading in October, and if you have any suggestions on the books that I'm planning to read. Thank you so much for watching my video today, and I hope you all have a wonderful day or night whenever you're watching this. Bye!